Hi, good morning, everyone. Okay, fabric mat time. I'm sorry it took me a lot longer than I promised, but it was a busy month. So I know I said February, now we're in March, but anyway, here we are. So my apologies, but let's get right into it. So this is going to be pretty straightforward. It doesn't need to be complicated to work well. What we're using, you have your frame, a cardstock or a museum backing board. I have a ruler, my X-Acto knife. I've got some double-sided tape and the fabric that we'll be using, which I'll go through in a second. But moving along, let's just go through our frame. So this is what I'm using. I love this frame. I found it in an antique market in Ontario. It's got this double frame thing going on with the wood on the outside and then this rigid fabric on the inside and then like a really thin gold trim that I really like. I went in and cleaned it up a little. It still has a little bit of a varnish on it, which I might sand down a little more, but I've gone in and cleaned up some of the nicks and bruises and just removed some of that gloss off of it that I didn't like, just to bring out the natural quality of the wood a little bit more. On the back side, I've obviously removed everything, including the glass, which I've just put aside for the tutorial because it would create a lot of glare. And I've cleaned up the back side. I've removed the craft paper that was attached as well as some tape, and then opened the fasteners. In this case, I can reuse them. They stay within the frame, but sometimes old frames have like nails or other things that just you have to remove and replace with new ones. So like a local framing shop will easily put some new fasteners on for you. Okay, so nothing on the inside of the frame. What we're gonna do is take our backing board. This one is quite thick. It's about, actually I don't know how thick it is, but when you go to the store, like your local craft store, just find something that would mimic like a mat in terms of thickness. And it's usually a cardstock or a backing board. I've cut mine down to the inner dimensions of my frame, which are about 8 by 10 inches. Just do that first and then double check, make sure it fits, because you don't want to go to all the next steps and then realize it's too small or too large and it's moving around in your frame. Moving along to fabrics, these are my favorites that I like to use. I've collected these over the years at antique markets. My mom has given me some of these. One is from my grandma in Poland. They are essentially like old tablecloths, table runners, napkins, all kinds of things. I really like this one. It's got these loose fibers that are like little tiny knots and things in the fabric that look really nice and have a very kind of rustic feel. But I also use some of the more refined linens that are a little bit crisper and cleaner. And they look really nice when you're pairing them with a more refined or a more elegant frame. So these are the favorites. I've used these throughout my collections in the past. And I do have this one underneath that I really like, that I think is going to go really well with today's project. So moving along to our backing board. Obviously, we need an opening to showcase whatever artwork we're going to be putting in. So I'm using my Land of You print. I love this print and I think it'll look nice with the frame. So we're measuring 5 by 7 inches. So what we want to do is take that same dimension and create an opening in our backing board. So to do this, we're going to take our ruler and we're going to translate the same print dimension onto the backing board. We're going to center it. My piece here is 10 inches wide. So the midpoint would be at 5 inches. So I'm just going to mark that here. And then we're going to do the same top and bottom, and which is 8 inches. So we're going to measure at 4, and that's our midpoint. And then from there, we're going to take, so 7 inches wide. So we're going to go 3.5, 3.5. And we're just going to indicate that with little markers. And then we're going to do the same for the top and bottom, which is 5 inches. Excuse me. So 2.5, 2.5. Like so, and then we're just going to line those off. You can get really technical with making sure your ruler's straight here, but I'm just using the outer edge of the backing board to make sure that my lines are straight. One thing to keep in mind here is that we don't want our opening to be the exact same dimension as our print. So I'm just going to take about 1/8 of an inch to 1/4 inch inside of those lines and draw another line that's going to indicate where I'm going to trim. And that way I ensure that my opening is slightly smaller than my print and that I'm not having like any gaps or anything weird that's happening between my print and my mat. Okay, once I've done that, we're ready to cut. So I'm going to take my X-Acto knife and doing a light score as my first pass. I'm going to run it down and then I'm going to take my knife again and then cut down a little bit deeper. And I'm going to do that on the other side. Being careful with my corners, I want them to be nice and clean. That is where the difference between what will look refined and polished and a little bit sloppy is going to come into play. So just make sure those corners are as clean as you can get them. And I'm just going to go in and just finish them off. I didn't quite connect here. And on this side as well. There we go. Okay. So that's ready. So that's essentially our mat. So now we just want to double check, make sure our print works. We didn't cut anything wrong. Looks good. I've got a little bit of space on either side and it will work for us. So now we're going to take our fabric. We're going to lay it flat on our desk space and we're going to apply our mat over it. All we're doing here is just basically indicating the amount of fabric that we'll need. It doesn't need to be perfect. I've got this flap here where it's folded over and stitched, so I'm going to avoid that. And we're just going to take our ruler and our X-Acto and cut an approximate or slightly larger piece of fabric that will then work with and adhere to our mat. Okay, just on the bottom. There we go. Okay, so we're all set and we're ready to attach our fabric to our mat. So it's a little bit larger and that's okay. I'm going to show you how to trim that after we tape it down, which is a lot easier to do. So we're going to take our double-sided tape here and using that tape, we're going to apply 4 strips to the outer edge of each side. So I just do the opposite ends first and I remove the little backing tape of the double-sided tape because I don't want to be putting another layer or strip of tape on top of that. So just do that first. There we go. And then I'm going to apply the same top and bottom. Okay, that's the last piece. And again, just remove the backing. Okay, we're all set. So once we've got our 4 edges down, we're going to take our fabric, and I work from the top. I just apply to the outer corners and then very gently tug and pull, but very gently, just to maintain you don't want to create waves in the fibers of the fabric. So just enough that it's taut and tight, but not stretched. And then I go around each edge and just pull and pull slightly to make sure I've got it right where I want it and that it's covering the entire mat. it should feel fairly tight, and that sort of loose window in the middle that doesn't have a backing should feel firm. And now once it's applied and adhered, it's easier to trim those edges, that extra fabric. We're just going to get rid of that to have nice clean edges. There we go. Okay, so we're all set. So now we have to cut away at our opening. And the way that I like to do this, it's very simple and it ends up looking very clean, is that I work in the corners and I take my X-Acto knife and we're going to basically cut 1 to 2 inch diagonals from the corner into the middle of the frame. Just like that. Okay, there we go. And now we're just going to connect the 4 corners and cut away at our fabric. And essentially what we've done is we've created 4 separate sort of folds that we're going to attach back to the back side of our mat. So again, using our double-sided tape, we're doing the same process, but we're doing it on the inner edge. So top and bottom, or left and right, whichever you prefer, first. Okay, and then the same, once you've removed the backing, do the other opposite ends. There we go. And that's that. So once you've removed all 4 backing papers, we're going to start, I like to start at the bottom, and using my fingers, I'm just gently folding the fabric over, making sure that there's no bubbles or folds or creases as I go, and I'm going to attach it back down to the tape. And you're just going to repeat this process for all 4 sides, slowly pulling gently, just enough to make sure that the front side is nice and flat. Okay, just like that. And then just take care in the corners. Make sure that they're nicely secured. And that's that. So I've put another piece of backing behind the frame, or behind the mat rather, but you don't need to do that. I just find it's nicer because that's basically the back side of your frame, so it's just a nice clean look. So I'm going to take my print now and I'm going to secure it. I use a washi tape, which is both strong enough to keep the print in place, but if you ever want to change out your print or change it into a different frame, it's not going to damage the paper. So I'm just going to secure that down on all 4 sides. There we go. And we're all set. We're done. So this is the final look. Obviously, let's get it in a frame. Let's take a look at the finished product, see if there's anything we need to adjust. Again, I've got that backing board in the back. And obviously, you probably have glass here, but I'm showing it without. So I'm just getting it in, working around my little fasteners. I'm going to secure it back down. I need to rotate my hardware, but that's okay. And there you have it, all done. So I'm gonna show you up close. It looks really nice, super textural, lots of layers, and it's a really nice way to customize your artwork in your home. So if you guys felt courageous enough to try this, I would love to see what you guys have done, the fabrics you've used, the art you framed, the frames that you've chosen. Share them with me on my social media on Donata Delano Art, and tag me. I'd love to see them. And until next time, guys, thank you.